Northern France, August 17th, 1944. The sun sits low over a quiet roadside near Falaise, and the air still carries the acrid bite of burnt fuel and cordite. Sitting there, canvas torn and flapping in the wind, is an American truck, a GMC 2.5 ton, its engine ticking softly as it cools, abandoned after a Luftwaffe strafing run. One of the last times German planes would even dare show themselves over French soil. The convoy it belonged to had scattered into the tree line, but this truck stayed behind, wounded but whole, waiting. German mechanics from the 276th Infantry Division approached slowly, boots crunching over gravel, their eyes scanning for booby traps, their hands cautious on the warm metal hood. One of them, a young corporal, pulls open the driver's door and leans inside, inhaling the strange smell of American tobacco, oil, and something else. Mass production. "Get the Hauptfeldwebel," he calls over his shoulder, his voice tight with curiosity. This one's completely intact. What they're about to discover in the next 60 minutes will shatter everything they thought they understood about this war. They'll realize Germany didn't lose on the beaches of Normandy or in the hedgerows of Bocage. They lost in the sprawling factories of Detroit, in the assembly lines of Pontiac, in a manufacturing philosophy so alien it might as well have come from another planet. The truck is massive, dwarfing their standard Opel Blitz like a wolf standing over a dog. 2.5 tons rated capacity, but the frame looks like it could carry twice that without complaint. The Hauptfeldwebel arrives, a veteran mechanic who worked in the Opel plant before the war, and he circles the vehicle slowly, his experienced eyes taking in every detail, every rivet, every weld. He pops the hood, and what he sees stops him cold. The engine sits there, completely exposed, no complicated shrouding, no hidden components, just 6 cylinders laid out in a straight line with every part clearly visible and labeled in simple English. He reaches for the toolbox mounted on the running board, flips the latch, and inside finds a collection of standard wrenches, a set of pliers, a screwdriver, and a maintenance manual printed on thick, quality paper with detailed illustrations that look like they were drawn for children. "Look at this," the Hauptfeldwebel mutters, flipping through the pages, his finger tracing diagrams so clear that even a farmhand could follow them. Everything is explained with pictures. A child could maintain this machine. They've captured American equipment before, rifles and jeeps, and the occasional half-track. But never have they had the time or the safety to truly examine one, to peel back its layers and understand what it represents. The GMC bears factory stamps showing it rolled off the line in 1943, model CCKW353, the long wheelbase version, and the production number stamped into the frame tells a story that makes the Hauptfeldwebel's stomach tighten. This is truck number 147,812 from a single plant in a single year. He does the math twice because he can't believe it the first time. The first inspection reveals a philosophy so different from German engineering, it feels almost insulting. The GMC's engine, a 270 cubic inch inline 6, produces 104 horsepower. Nothing impressive, nothing that would make a German engineer proud. But then the mechanic notices something that changes everything. Every bolt on this engine is the same size. Every nut turns with the same wrench. The spark plugs are positioned where you can reach them without removing anything else. The oil filter, which on an Opel requires half an hour and 3 different tools, can be changed here by hand in under 2 minutes. "This is designed for idiots," one of the younger mechanics says, and there's contempt in his voice, the kind that comes from pride wounded by simplicity. The Hauptfeldwebel shakes his head slowly, his weathered face showing something between admiration and dread. "No," he says quietly, "this is designed for an army of millions where most soldiers aren't mechanics, where boys from farms and factories have to keep vehicles running with minimal training and no specialty knowledge. This isn't stupidity. This is brilliance." And he's right. Terrifyingly right. The GMC wasn't built for perfection. It was built for reality. For the American conscript army, where teenagers from Iowa cornfields and Pennsylvania steel towns would become combat drivers after a few weeks of basic instruction, every component was chosen not for performance, but for availability, for ease of replacement, for the brutal mathematics of industrial war. Nothing on this truck is exotic. Nothing requires a specialist. Nothing demands factory conditions to repair. They move to the drivetrain, and here the advantage becomes even more stark. The GMC has six-wheel drive, all wheels powered through a simple transfer case that engages with a single lever. Even a panicked private could operate it in the dark. The Germans think of their Opel Blitz trucks, rear-wheel drive only, constantly slipping in French mud, requiring careful throttle control and experience to avoid getting hopelessly bogged down. This American monster could simply power through terrain that would leave German vehicles stranded and useless. The suspension uses leaf springs, thick slabs of steel stacked and bolted together, crude as hammers but virtually indestructible. The Hauptfeldwebel thinks of the elegant torsion bar suspension on the Opel, beautiful engineering that requires precision tools and factory conditions to repair. These leaf springs, he realizes with growing unease, could be straightened with a rock and a strong back if necessary. But the numbers are what truly terrify him. Stamped into the frame rail is the production data. Pontiac Plant Number 1, year 1943, unit number 147812. If the sequence is accurate, and he has no reason to doubt American record-keeping, this single plant produced roughly 150,000 trucks in 1 year. One plant, 1 year. More trucks than Germany produced across all categories, all manufacturers, all purposes combined. A young corporal, barely 20 years old, does the math aloud, his voice shaking slightly. If one American factory makes this many trucks, how many factories do they have? The Hauptfeldwebel doesn't answer immediately because the answer is too painful. Dozens, he finally says, his voice flat. GMC, Chevrolet, Studebaker, International Harvester, Dodge, Ford, all of them building similar vehicles to the same military specifications, all with parts that interchange, all feeding the same vast logistics network. That evening, the unit's supply officer arrives, a former manager at the Opel plant in Brandenburg, who understands automotive manufacturing at a level most soldiers never will. He walks around the truck once, twice, then stops and looks at the assembled mechanics with an expression they'll remember for the rest of their lives. "We're looking at this wrong," he says quietly. "We see a simple truck. But what this actually represents is a manufacturing philosophy we cannot match. We don't have the infrastructure. We don't have the industrial base, and most importantly, we don't have the time to build either." He points to the body panels, crude stamped steel with visible welds and no attempt at elegance. "These panels are ugly," he says, "but any press shop in America can stamp them out by the thousands." The wooden cargo bed uses standard lumber from any sawmill. The canvas top is commercial fabric you could buy in a department store. Nothing here is specialized. Everything is abundant. Everything is replaceable. He moves to the chassis, running his hand along the simple ladder frame. Straight channel steel welded together in a pattern so basic it looks almost primitive. Any structural steel plant can produce this frame, he continues. Compare that to our Opel, with its precisely formed rails that require specialized dies that take months to manufacture. We designed for engineering perfection. They designed for industrial capacity, and in total war, capacity wins. The supply officer's assessment grows darker as he studies the production stamps and calculates the implications. In 1943, he says, Germany produced approximately 27,000 Opel Blitz trucks. Our entire automotive industry, working at capacity, managed 27,000 units. The Americans probably built 20 times that number of just these GMC trucks alone, and that's one model from one manufacturer. They have dozens of manufacturers all building to the same standard. He's actually underestimating, though he doesn't know it yet. American factories will eventually produce over 560,000 CCKW trucks during the war years. Germany's total production of the Opel Blitz, the backbone of Wehrmacht logistics, will barely exceed 100,000 units, most of them the 4x2 version that lacks all-wheel drive, that can't handle rough terrain, that gets stuck in conditions where the GMC just keeps moving. Over the next week, the unit uses the captured GMC for supply runs, and it transforms their understanding of what a military truck should be. Where their Opel trucks struggle through muddy farm roads, gears grinding and wheels spinning uselessly, the GMC just shifts into six-wheel drive and powers through like the mud isn't even there. When they load it beyond its rated capacity, something that happens constantly because supplies are scarce and trips are dangerous, it keeps functioning, the frame flexing but not breaking, the engine laboring but not failing. A supply sergeant who drives it daily, a man who's been driving trucks since before the war, offers his assessment one evening over cigarettes and thin coffee. "This truck is reliable in a way our vehicles simply aren't," he says. And it's not that it's better built, it's that it's built expecting abuse. They designed it knowing soldiers would overload it, skip maintenance, and drive it like they're trying to destroy it. So they built it to survive that reality. That's the revelation that hits like a punch to the gut. American engineers didn't design for ideal conditions. They designed for war, for chaos, for exhausted teenagers making mistakes, for delayed maintenance and overloading and terrible roads and worse weather. They built accordingly, simple where simple worked, robust where strength mattered, forgiving where soldiers would inevitably make errors. August 25th, 1944, the same day the Red Ball Express begins its legendary supply operation. The 276th Infantry Division receives orders to withdraw eastward, falling back toward Germany as the Allied advance accelerates. As they move, they witness something that completes their education in American industrial might. An American supply convoy passes on a parallel road, not a tactical movement, but pure logistics, and the Germans stop to watch, counting vehicles out of professional curiosity. After 30 minutes, they give up counting because the convoy seems endless. Truck after truck after truck stretching to the horizon, all identical GMC CCKW models, all loaded with supplies, all moving with mechanical precision toward the front lines. A young soldier, barely 18, asks a question that shows how completely different the two armies really are. "Where are their horses?" he asks, genuinely confused, and the Hauptfeldwebel realizes this boy has never seen a fully motorized army. In the Wehrmacht, 80% of logistics depends on horses, actual living animals that need food and water and rest. Their division alone requires over 5,000 horses just to move supplies. Horses that can march perhaps 30 kilometers per day in good conditions. Horses that die by the thousands when winter comes. Horses that represent a logistics system more similar to Napoleon's army than to the 20th century. American divisions have no horses. None. They have trucks. Thousands upon thousands of trucks that can move hundreds of kilometers per day. That require no fodder, that don't tire, that don't freeze to death in winter, that don't break legs or catch diseases or panic under artillery fire. The supply officer does more calculations that night by candlelight, his pencil scratching across paper as he works through the mathematics of American logistics. Each American division has approximately 2,000 trucks. He says to no one in particular. They have roughly 40 divisions in France right now. That's 80,000 trucks just supporting combat operations, not counting the supply services, the transportation corps, the engineers. We have 3 million horses across all fronts and maybe 100,000 trucks total. And most of those trucks are broken down or out of fuel. Someone asks the obvious question, the one that's been hanging in the air like smoke. How can they produce so many vehicles? The answer comes slowly because it's painful to articulate, painful to admit. American automotive plants were designed for mass production decades before this war started. The supply officer explains. Henry Ford's assembly line. General Motors' production systems when war came. They didn't have to build new factories or train new workers. They just converted civilian production to military specifications. The same factories that built Chevrolet sedans now build GMC trucks. The same workers who assembled Oldsmobiles now assemble military vehicles. The transition was seamless because the philosophy was already there. Standardization, interchangeability, mass production. Germany has excellent engineers, perhaps the best in the world, but it lacks this infrastructure, this decades-deep culture of mass manufacturing. The Opel plant in Brandenburg, even running at absolute peak capacity with workers on double shifts, can't match the output of a single American automotive complex. And America has dozens of such complexes, all humming with three-shift production, all churning out vehicles faster than Germany can destroy them. By September, the unit has captured 3 more GMC trucks and a Dodge WC63, and the mechanics notice something that makes the situation even more hopeless. Parts are interchangeable, not just between GMC trucks, which would be impressive enough, but between different manufacturers. A GMC carburetor fits the Dodge engine. Electrical components are standardized across brands. Even the tires are the same size. They've standardized their entire vehicle fleet, the supply officer explains, his voice carrying a mixture of admiration and despair. One set of specifications, multiple manufacturers all building to the same standard. It means any mechanic can service any truck, any parts depot can supply any vehicle. Their logistics are unified in a way ours have never been. The Wehrmacht uses vehicles from dozens of manufacturers with completely incompatible parts. A mechanic trained on Opel trucks can't service a Busing. Parts for Mercedes vehicles won't fit Horch models. Supply warehouses have to stock components for hundreds of different vehicle types. And it's a logistical nightmare that gets worse every month as vehicles age and parts become scarcer. October 3rd, 1944. The division's remaining vehicles sit silent and useless when fuel supplies fail to arrive. The trucks are just dead weight without gasoline, though at least the horses can forage for food in abandoned fields. Meanwhile, less than 20 kilometers away, American operations continue without pause because their supply network, built on thousands of GMC trucks running on reliable schedules, delivers fuel to forward units with clockwork precision. The mechanics spend their enforced idleness studying the captured American trucks, measuring dimensions, sketching components, trying to understand the thinking behind every design choice. One of them, a former engineering student from Stuttgart, makes an observation that crystallizes everything they've learned. "We designed our vehicles to be good," he says. "They designed theirs to be good enough, but in overwhelming numbers. In total war. That's what wins. Not excellence, but adequacy multiplied by industrial capacity." The Hauptfeldwebel writes a detailed technical report on the GMC CCKW, documenting every aspect from the standardized components to the simple maintenance procedures to the robust construction that sacrifices elegance for pure durability. The report notes that while the Opel Blitz is superior to the GMC in fuel efficiency and maneuverability, these advantages become meaningless when Germany produces one truck for every 5 or 6 American trucks. His conclusion reads like an epitaph. "American vehicle production represents industrial capacity we cannot match," he writes. Their manufacturing philosophy prioritizes quantity and standardization over individual vehicle perfection. In sustained warfare, this approach has proven devastatingly effective. We are not losing to better soldiers or better tactics. We are losing to better factories. Similar reports flood Wehrmacht headquarters from every front, from Russia, where German vehicles freeze while American Studebakers keep running, from Italy, where mountain roads destroy German trucks, but American vehicles just keep climbing, from North Africa, where heat and sand killed German engines while American trucks survived. Intelligence analysts compiled the statistics with growing alarm, the numbers so staggering they seem like errors. American factories produced 2.4 million military trucks during the war. Germany, Italy, and Japan combined don't approach half that total. December 1944 brings Hitler's last desperate gamble, the Ardennes offensive, and even this final throw of the dice reveals how completely Germany has lost the industrial war. The operation's logistics plan openly relies on capturing American fuel supplies, because Germany simply doesn't have enough fuel to sustain the offensive beyond the first few days. German soldiers receive orders to use captured American vehicles whenever possible, because Wehrmacht logistics can't keep their own vehicles supplied. The irony is bitter enough to taste. Germany's last major offensive depends entirely on capturing the very trucks and fuel that symbolize why Germany is losing. The 276th Infantry Division participates in the offensive using their collection of captured American trucks alongside their few remaining Opel vehicles. And the contrast is stark. When the offensive stalls, it's not primarily due to American resistance, though that's fierce and costly, but because German logistics collapse completely. Panzer divisions abandon tanks when fuel trucks can't reach them. Infantry units resort to horse-drawn wagons because motorized transport has broken down, and everywhere German soldiers are walking while their vehicles sit empty and useless. Meanwhile, American supply operations continue with the smooth efficiency of a well-oiled machine. The Red Ball Express has ended, but American logistics now operates from Antwerp and Brussels and Cherbourg, ports that American engineers have repaired with stunning speed. Trucks move supplies on routes that become more efficient every day as engineers rebuild French infrastructure, repair bridges, improve roads, and the American Army functions like a machine. A massive industrial organism fed by Detroit and sustained by a logistics network that Germany can't disrupt and can't match. January 1945, as the Ardennes offensive fails and German forces retreat again, the captured GMC trucks prove invaluable. They're still running while the Opel trucks, subjected to the same harsh winter conditions and the same brutal use, have mostly broken down. The difference isn't maintenance or care, it's fundamental design philosophy. The GMC was built to absorb punishment, to keep functioning under conditions that would kill a more sophisticated vehicle. The Opel was built to German standards of precision that simply can't tolerate wartime abuse. March 1945, the 276th Infantry Division defends positions in the Rhineland as American forces cross the Rhine in overwhelming strength. And the mechanics watch American supply operations with professional admiration mixed with deep despair. They've built an army that runs on logistics, the Hauptfeldwebel observes, and they've built logistics that can't be stopped. Our army was designed assuming we'd fight short campaigns where tactical excellence would overcome material disadvantages. We never planned for years of sustained combat against an enemy that produces equipment faster than we can destroy it. The division surrenders on April 18, 1945, and they're transported to processing centers in, ironically, American GMC trucks. The journey provides one final education in American industrial capacity. At the processing center near Koblenz, prisoners see hundreds of American trucks in massive motor pools, and young American soldiers service them with casual efficiency that would have been impossible in the Wehrmacht. Parts are abundant, stacked in warehouses that stretch for blocks. Tools are readily available. Maintenance manuals are simple enough that soldiers with minimal training perform complex repairs. A captured mechanic speaks with an American motor sergeant who's surprisingly friendly given the circumstances. "You mechanics?" the sergeant asks, and when they nod, he gestures at the GMC trucks filling the yard. "Hell, we need mechanics. Can you work on these?" "Yes," the Hauptfeldwebel answers. "We've maintained several captured ones." "Good." The EE sergeant says, "War's over for you guys, but these trucks still need maintenance. I can get you assigned to the motor pool better than sitting behind wire." Over the following weeks, German mechanics work alongside American soldiers, maintaining the very vehicles that helped defeat them, and the American sergeant explains the maintenance philosophy with refreshing honesty. "We design everything, For speed, he says, quick maintenance, common parts, simple procedures. See this engine. Complete overhaul can be done by a two-man team in 8 hours using field tools. Try doing that with one of your trucks. The German mechanic acknowledges the truth, because there's no point in pride anymore. An Opel engine overhaul requires factory conditions and specialized equipment, he admits. We designed for precision. You designed for practicality. Exactly. The American says, in peacetime, your way probably produces better vehicles. In war, our way produces vehicles that keep armies moving. You know how many of these GMC trucks we built? The German shakes his head. Over 500,000 of just this model, the sergeant continues. Then there's the Dodges, the Studebakers, the Internationals, millions of trucks total. That's what won the war. Not better equipment, but more equipment than you could ever destroy. The American sergeant leans against a fender, lighting a cigarette, his tone almost apologetic. You know what's funny? These trucks aren't even that complicated. We used commercial truck technology, barely modified it for military use. The engine's a commercial design. The transmission's commercial. We just made everything rugged and produced it in massive quantities. That's the secret. There is no secret, just industrial capacity and smart design. This is the lesson German mechanics absorb completely during their captivity. America won through industrial philosophy as much as through industrial capacity. They designed for mass production from the very beginning, standardized ruthlessly, across manufacturers, prioritized reliability over sophistication, and built supply chains that could sustain operations indefinitely. The mechanics spend months in prisoner camps, many working in American motor pools, and they witness the scale of American logistics daily. Convoys of hundreds of trucks moving supplies across occupied Germany, repair depots with more spare parts than entire German divisions ever possessed, production systems so efficient that damaged vehicles are often simply replaced rather than repaired, because new trucks arrive from the States faster than field repairs can be completed. Late 1945, as repatriation begins, German mechanics return to a homeland that barely resembles the country they left. Cities are rubble, factories are destroyed, infrastructure is shattered, but everywhere, everywhere, are American vehicles. GMC trucks haul reconstruction materials, Jeeps carry occupation forces. American equipment supports the beginning of German rebuilding, and the irony isn't lost on anyone. The Hauptfeldwebel, now just a civilian named Werner, finds work at a reconstruction depot in Frankfurt, and his experience with American vehicles makes him valuable in the new Germany. One day, training young Germans in vehicle maintenance, he reflects on what the war taught him. What those years examining captured trucks revealed about modern warfare. Before the war, we believed German engineering was superior, he tells his students. That quality would overcome quantity. We were wrong. The Americans understood modern industrial warfare better than we did. They built adequate equipment in overwhelming numbers. They standardized ruthlessly. They designed for the army they had, millions of ordinary men, not the army we wished we had, of elite specialists. He gestures toward the GMC trucks in the depot yard, still running, still hauling, still working years after they rolled off assembly lines in Michigan. These trucks aren't masterpieces of engineering, he says, but they won the war because there were hundreds of thousands of them. Because they all used the same parts. Because any soldier could drive them and any mechanic could fix them. The genius wasn't in individual vehicles, but in the system that produced them. That's what we failed to understand until it was too late. By 1947, the Marshall Plan delivers aid to Germany, transported primarily in American trucks that German mechanics maintain, applying lessons learned from years of observation and practice. And when German industry begins rebuilding, many companies incorporate American manufacturing principles into their operations. Standardization, component commonality, designed for manufacturability. These concepts, learned from defeat, will help rebuild a nation. The GMC CKKGW remains in American service until the 1960s, a testament to its robust design and the Deuce-and-a-Half philosophy behind it. Many serve even longer in Allied militaries around the world, running on roads from Korea to Vietnam. The Opel Blitz, despite being an excellent vehicle by any engineering standard, becomes a symbol of Germany's industrial shortcomings during the war, a reminder that excellence without capacity is just expensive failure. In the decades that follow, German automotive manufacturers merged German engineering precision with American mass production techniques. Companies like Mercedes-Benz and BMW, and the rebuilt Volkswagen create vehicles that combine both philosophies: precision engineering, designed for efficient mass production. Former Wehrmacht mechanics, who maintained both German and American vehicles during the war, become valuable consultants to rebuilding German industry because they understand both approaches and can articulate why the American system proved superior in sustained conflict. One such consultant, in a 1967 interview for an automotive trade journal, summarizes the lesson with brutal clarity. The GMC truck taught us that in modern warfare, perfection is the enemy of good enough, he says. Germany designed beautiful vehicles that were too complex to produce in necessary quantities and too sophisticated for field maintenance. America designed adequate vehicles that could be produced by the millions and maintained by anyone. We lost not because our engineers were inferior, but because we misunderstood what industrial warfare required. We thought it required excellence when it actually required sufficiency multiplied by overwhelming scale. The article includes a photograph taken at an automotive museum, a restored GMC CCKW sitting next to a restored Opel Blitz, and the visual comparison tells the entire story. Both are well-designed trucks, both are products of skilled engineering, but one existed in number that could supply armies across continents, while the other was a quality product, produced in insufficient quantities by an industrial base that simply couldn't compete. The mechanics who examined that first captured GMC in August 1944 understood immediately what it represented. They saw the future of warfare and simultaneously saw Germany's past. They recognized that American industrial philosophy, developed in the automotive plants of Detroit and refined through decades of mass production, had proven itself the superior approach for modern conflict. The GMC CCKW wasn't just a truck. It was a teacher of hard lessons about industrial warfare, about design philosophy, about why quantity has a quality all its own, and for German mechanics who maintained these vehicles first as enemies, then as prisoners, and finally as civilians helping rebuild their shattered country. Those lessons shaped the rest of their lives and influenced German manufacturing for generations. The story of Wehrmacht mechanics and the GMC truck is ultimately about learning through defeat, about the painful acquisition of wisdom that comes from being crushed by an enemy whose strength you didn't understand until it was far too late. They believed in German superiority, in precision over quantity, in engineering perfection over mass production, and American trucks, simple and abundant and reliable, taught them otherwise through demonstration too overwhelming to deny. That knowledge, painful in its acquisition and humbling in its implications, became invaluable during Reconstruction, helping transform Germany from a defeated enemy into a prosperous ally, built on foundations that included lessons learned from thousands of American trucks that rolled through European battlefields delivering supplies, demonstrating capacity, and teaching the future to an army that had designed for the past. The mechanics who drove captured GMC trucks admitted, finally, that they had never had vehicles quite like them, not because of superior engineering in any traditional sense, but because of a production philosophy Germany had never mastered, a philosophy that valued adequacy and abundance over perfection and scarcity. That admission, honest and humbling, marked the beginning of wisdom, and from that wisdom came the rebuilding of a nation that learned, perhaps better than any other, that in modern industrial war, the factory is as important as the battlefield, and sometimes the simple truck wins over the sophisticated one, not despite its simplicity, but because of it.